Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us again for another episode of Breakthrough Real Estate Investing Podcast. I think this is 203. So if you haven't heard all the other ones before, you can go back and listen to 202 other episodes. So stop it right now. Don't listen to this one. Go back, listen to all the rest, then come back to this one. Is that a good plan, Quentin?
I don't know. That's a lot of episodes. Maybe
like-
they should listen to this one first and then go back.
If they like it. If they don't like it, then they don't even have to bother going back.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, there's going to be a lot to like about this one. So, it might be a good first episode. So never mind.
Yeah.
Stay here, listen to this one. If you like it, go back and listen to the other ones.
Awesome.
Hey, Quentin, I wanted to say that everyone should go over to breakthroughreipodcast.ca. Listen to all the other shows after this one. And you can get in touch with the guests over there too. All the links to everyone that we've ever talked to on the show are there. So you can reach out to them if you want to do that. If they have something that was of interest to you, or you just want to talk a little more to them, reach out and then go over and get our free gift. We've got a free gift up there. It's what is that free gift? Do you remember? I'm gonna have to cut this out again.
No, it's tips on finding off-market properties. So it's a off-market property guide for real estate investors, some strategies, tools that you can use in order to be able to do some shaking down the tree and finding some good deals, as an investor.
Well, there you go. And then, like we said, it was a free gift, but if you do go over there and get that, then I would say the best payment that you could give us is to go over to iTunes, leave us a rating and review. Let us know what you think of the show. Let us know what kind of topics we should talk about on other shows. Maybe if you have a guest idea, anything, just tell us what you think. Go over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It helps. We've got a lot of really good reviews. I think we've got 400 over there now.
Wow, that's awesome.
So go over and do that. Quentin, what's going on in Durham-REI land?
Well, you know what? I'm actually, it's more like in Canada. I was totally shocked by the capital gains announcement yesterday with the Canadian government with their budget. I was shocked. I didn't believe that we would have capital gains change as we saw right now. We now in Canada have the highest capital gains in North America, higher than California, higher than New York State. This is definitely going to send the wrong message to businesses and investors. I don't know what the government is doing other than, and that what they did is they said that there was a date. So June 25th going forward, that the capital gains is going to be changed. I think what we're going to see is a whole bunch of transactions and changes happen to people's portfolios before June 25th. I don't know if that means a huge sell-off in the stock market in order to crystallize gains before the actual change happens. Does it mean selling some assets?
Tough, it's not that far. When is it?
June 25th.
Of this year.
Yeah. This year. So what you're going to see is that huge, and I think for the government, it means that they're going to get a whole bunch of money right at the onset. So it may seem like a good idea in the short term. In the long term, you're raising the cost of capital. You're going to have slow down foreign investment. You're going to hurt productivity. You're going to kill jobs. You're going to reduce asset turnover. You're going to discourage the investment in rental properties. And you're going to encourage high income earners to leave Canada. It is one of those things that I just don't see, other than trying to garner votes from a certain segment of the population. I don't see how this is going to be beneficial to Canada overall. And
look at all the probably the amazing initiatives that they're going to use that money towards, right? It's all going to be really, really thought out, planned. Don't you think?
Oh, oh
No,
yeah, yeah. I have not, I'm, usually I'm not a really political person. I try to
I
stay out
have
of all
become
of this
much more
stuff.
political over the last few years, obviously. There's
Yeah,
no way around that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and I wanted to ask you something because I'm sure people would be interested in this. As somebody who's, living in Costa Rica, did you pay like an exit tax to leave Canada? Or are you non-resident? How did it work for you from a tax
Well,
perspective?
since I'm here and we do a lot of stuff, like we earn American dollars here, for example. So I'm just gonna plead the fifth on that one for now. And we can move on and talk about
But
other things.
so okay, so you don't want to talk about that. But
No,
did you
certainly not.
no,
I don't want to
okay.
talk. I don't want to, yeah, I don't, I don't want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk about. Well, you know what? I have some friends of mine who, they had a number of apartment buildings and they've changed their residency. So
Mhm.
they have because they changed their residency, they have like a 25% tax. Others who gave up their citizenship, unfortunately, and moved to other countries, but they paid a large exit tax. So that would be an interesting topic maybe for another day,
Well, I
but
didn't give up my Canadian citizenship.
yeah,
I
okay.
don't, I have residency here, but I'm not a citizen of the
Yeah.
country. Um, so yeah, so that's how that works. Now, I wanted to ask you something else about that. Um,
Well,
oh,
I think
what I was gonna say, sorry, is that, I mean, if there's people doing flips up there, I can tell the capital gains tax is 15% of the gain here.
right.
So it actually, I do work with a few investors that have done flips and it's worked out very well here.
Yeah, so but is that active income? Is like the tax rate for active income? Is it like a flip considered active income in Costa Rica, or is a flip considered a capital gain in Costa Rica? That's interesting. Is
So
that different?
it's a capital gain.
Oh,
And
interesting.
you can do it like, so there's two ways to do it. They both work out to roughly 15% of the gain, but with the corporation, it's 15% of the gain.
Oh, okay. Very interesting. So there's other ways to do that. Well, I want to make sure that we give our guest enough time here. So maybe we can do a bit of an introduction. I
Mhm.
know that uh, Drew is an old friend of both of ours, and we've known him for a few years, but you haven't seen each other for a while. I haven't seen him. I only saw him a couple weeks ago for the first time in a few years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and of course, in typical fashion, I had like an audio issue when you first came on before the show. And so, it's just so silly when I wanted to say, "Hey man, it's nice to see you. It's been a while." And I'm just, you can't hear me. But anyway, we got it all worked out. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
thanks for being here, man. It's been like, yeah, it's been a while since we have seen each other.
Yeah,
No, of
maybe
course, man. Listen, I appreciate
I'll
it.
do an introduction. So Drew Knox is a father of three. He's a realtor and a real estate investor for over 13 years. He's a co-owner of Rustic Cannabis and an Airbnb Arbitrage Operator in the US and Mexico.
So that'll be interesting to talk about for sure. But welcome. Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
Thanks
no,
for
thanks for
being
the
here.
invite, guys. Appreciate it. Feel like I've made it to the big leagues.
Well, I think we met actually at Quentin's program. Is that right? It was
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
ago. Must have been like,
Action taker program.
That
it
must
was
have been
like
like 10 years
11
ago.
or
Yeah.
yeah, at least 10 years ago, probably more.
Yeah,
So
it's got to
yeah.
be because it was when you were on in Whippy there, Quentin, when you were hosting your meetings
Yeah.
back on Consumer Drive there.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that would have been like 2013, probably 2014, I would think.
And that was an
Um,
amazing Kickstarter course. It
It
really
was.
was. There was so much in there. And like I learned so much. I think I had one property at the time. And that just kickstarted me, man. And then like, I mean, I didn't fly off the shelf and just start buying everything, but we really did start moving after that.
Yeah, we went through a whole bunch of duplex conversions at that time too. I
Uh-huh.
remember I was probably doing like 3 or 4 a year with the duplex conversions or more
I
at
think you were
that
doing a
time.
triplex or something in Toronto too,
Yeah.
Ye-
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was interesting. So that was a flip project in Toronto where I had to bring a gas line in across a busy street and had to negotiate with the city, and it was and what we ended up doing is selling it as like a we were going to convert it to a triplex, but we were running out of money type thing, and we had all the materials inside it, kind of had all the plans up on the wall, and sold it as a project to the next person. So it
Oh, okay.
worked out pretty well. But yeah, it was an interesting one at the time. I remember that. I tried to bring people through all the stuff that I was doing at the time. But enough about me. You know, Drew, tell us
We're
about
here to, yeah, we're here to learn about Drew.
yeah.
Come
So
on,
tell me
Quentin.
about like how
Jeez.
yeah.
This is what he does on every show, Drew.
He's got a lot of knowledge to share. That's all.
I'm just kidding, of course. Yeah, but no, let's start with how you got started in real estate investing. Was that your first sort of intro to it, or what led up to that?
I mean, that was probably my first serious mentorship thing, and I think the coolest part for that for me was the relationships I still have today. I still talk to Darren from the group. We partnered on a deal together. Obviously, Rob and I had gotten together, and it was, it's funny now that you bring it up how long ago that was, but how I still formed some long lasting relationships from that, right? So that was probably the beginning when I started to really try to take it seriously. My original start's got to be, my family and my parents. We had a basement tenant growing up my whole life. Even when we moved from one house to our second house, uh, my parents always had a basement tenant just to kind of help them, get through hard times and for whatever reason. And so that was kind of my first real introduction to real estate, was kind of watching them do it. And oddly enough, that's obviously I have done the same thing since.
Very cool. So what was the properties that you were purchasing then? Like talk about your first couple of properties.
Yeah. So Quentin, duplexes, same thing, right? Same thing you were talking about. There's a lot of them. I grew up in South Ajax, and there's a lot of them built in that era down there, semis, detached. So I did the same thing, the Burr strategy, legalizing basement apartments. I had friends that were renting them out. So that was kind of my, I can do some basic math. And I was, adding up what they were paying and what the price was and put it into a mortgage calculator and figured, okay, maybe there's a little extra money left over here for somebody. So it made some sense for me, and they were all around me. So then that's what I got into. I started legalizing duplexes.
And how many did you end up with? Did you end up holding them, selling them? What did you end up doing with those?
I had 7 at the peak, and then COVID kind of came in, and this maybe lent to another question Rob had for me, was some challenges I had come across, and picking your partners correctly was a lesson I learned because I didn't have professional partners. I had friends and family, and then when times maybe looked a little unsure, a lot of people, a few of them panicked and kind of had me reduce my portfolio. Which so I kind of put a stop to that. Kind of had to readjust and realized to move forward effectively, I needed to partner with the right people that were on the same page as me and understood what we were trying to do.
Okay. Yeah, because there's always those times. But so you chose real estate because your family kind of chose it and you could kind of see that there was a lot of benefit to it. Um, what kind of results did you get from even from when you had purchased to when you had sold those assets?
We did very well. The market had gone up. We timed it well. Some of that was luck. Some of that was finding good deals, and then obviously forcing some equity into them. But we did very well on all of them, which is why I struggled a little bit understanding why everybody was bailing and kind of maybe got scared, and I'm thinking, man, these things are like foolproof. They were about as safe as they could get. I felt, in tough times people need rentals. You were forcing equity into them. They were cash flowing. It made a lot of sense. So there's obviously been challenges throughout the way, but none of them ever turned out negatively. We all made money. My partners all made double digit returns, and so that was a good thing. I was very proud of that. Even the people that bailed for whatever reasons, life happens. They all made money on the way out the door. So
Could you share a little bit of like a high level of some of the numbers, if you can remember?
So
Yeah.
I still have them. So of the three that I offloaded, I bought one of the partners out because I finally got upset by the third one, and I said I'm not letting it go. So I bought him out, but we doubled our money. So we bought in the one I can remember for sure. We bought in Peterborough and Lindsay near the end. Those were kind of the ones that my partners offloaded, and we were buying in the 300. Believe we bought one for 325, and we bought one for 345, I believe. And then we ended up selling the one partner I bought out. The price we agreed on was about 627, and then the Lindsay one was 603, is what we didn't even legalize that one. That one was a student rental. We did nothing to it, so we bought it for I think 345, sold for 603, and maybe throw a coat of paint on it. So
How many
to make
years
those
was
kind of
that?
returns. That one, boy, it was probably 2.5 years for the Lindsay one. We kind of timed that one right at the start. The Peterborough one hung around, and I still have it in the portfolio, but that one hung around probably a little bit longer, maybe 3.5 years. We got in a little earlier on that one. But the Lindsay one, it was just really good timing, and I think there was more in that. So we could have legalized it and done a little bit more with that, but it was what it was. And like I said, I'm never upset to making money, so it wasn't something to be angry about.
Yeah, that sounds great. Um, so now you've shifted a little bit, is that correct? You're not
Oh
doing
yeah,
the
absolutely.
duplex conversions anymore?
I would with the right deal and partner and all that kind of stuff, but it's become a little challenging to cash flow at the current prices in and around these areas. Oshawa, which is where I started, obviously Ajax too, which would have been really nice to get into. It's just hard to cash flow. It's unless you got to put a lot of money down. So it doesn't make quite as much sense for me at the moment to get into any new projects in those areas. Started to look a little more farther reaching areas, a little further out, maybe try to still find a little bit of cash flow. I still think there's some decent deals in Lindsay that I could be looking at, but no, I absolutely shifted. My retail store ended up taking a lot of my time over COVID, and that's what happened. So I got my partners kind of forced me out of the few deals there during COVID, and then I shifted to the retail store, and then that took a sizable amount of my time, and I had children over
Yeah, yeah, I
that
can
same
imagine.
period. So between all that, I had only so many hours in a day.
So tell us a little bit about your retail business then.
I started a cannabis shop during COVID. And what happened was I watched a lot of friends, and I was obviously self-employed as a realtor, so it didn't affect me quite to the level that I saw a lot of people get affected. But to me, I saw a lot of people have to make some tough choices and they got put in some very tough positions. And I thought, boy, you got to have more than one iron in the fire, in my opinion. So I wanted to diversify and do something out of the real estate, right? I just been heavy real estate sales, real estate investing, and it had served me well. But I thought, let's try maybe a different angle. And I thought, what better way to stay in the game than to partner with the government? I figured I wasn't going to go out of business. They were one of the few stores that were allowed to stay open. They were still doing curbside pickups, and so that it made a lot of sense to me at the time. And I had a friend whose parents had started one, so then that kind of got the wheels turning and ended up going forward with it.
And you
And
have,
you ended up with two stores, or?
Yeah, we opened a second one. So we opened the first one in Bowmanville. We've had it for 2 years. March was our 2-year anniversary, and then we opened our second one in Fenland Falls, and it's been about a year, just over a year. It was about 3 weeks ago, I think, was our 1-year anniversary.
Oh, very cool. So, so you went from there, you went from duplexes to retail stores,
Yeah,
and then you ended up doing Airbnb arbitrage. Like,
yeah, yeah.
I'm kind of like trying to make the connection, and I'm not sure how that all connects. Maybe you can, share a little bit of like how that all connected together.
Yeah, for sure. So, we did the two retail stores, and the Airbnb arbitrage thing obviously fits a little bit into the real estate mind of that I have, and we were on vacation. Is actually, to be honest, Quentin, it really started when I came to the Durham REI. The last meeting I came to was, Cam Cassidy,
Yeah.
and he was there presenting about, an Airbnb he had started. And I purposely went to that meeting because I was heading down to Florida, and I was kind of curious. I had seen your email come out, and he was right in the same area that my parents are in Dunedin, Florida. So we had went down to visit them, and he was in Clearwater, which is I don't know if people know the area, but obviously very, very close. And he was running through how he had kind of set these up. His price points were a little high for me. I think he bought a place for $1 million or something. From what I remember, 900 or something thousand. And I mean, it was working great for him. It sounded like. So long story short, as I went down to, this was right before I went to Florida. So then when I went down there, I had that kind of bug in my not to backtrack a little bit. One of my duplexes in Oshawa, I wasn't able to legalize the basement apartment, and I hadn't done enough of my due diligence. I did very well on this property, but long story short was I wasn't able to legalize it because it was in the floodplain. And what I ended up doing was short-term renting it to OPG workers. And I no longer have that property, so I don't have to worry about anybody getting me in trouble for that necessarily. But so that's where it kind of got me the idea of short-term rentals. Then I went and saw that presentation from Cam Cassidy, and I thought, wow, Florida, okay, I've done a short-term rental. I went down there visiting my parents, and we started to think about a property that we could use, because I got 3 small children, my wife and I, so we're, there's 5 of us coming down there, and it gets a little snug in a 2-bedroom condo that my parents have. So we started looking at houses. And then I was a little not shocked. I guess I was hoping there was better price points down there, but in that area, it was still, 350,000 to find something decent. You could find them in the twos, but required quite a bit of work. And, so I still had the same issues up here. Still needed 6-figure down payments. I had to qualify for mortgages as a self-employed individual in a foreign country. And so I still had a lot of the same problems. But then when I started, just looking at Airbnb in general, as a real estate agent, I stage homes, I photograph them, and I market them. That's what I do, right? So Airbnb fits a lot of those. That's essentially what you're doing, right? You're going in, you're staging a property, you're photographing it. There's more to it, obviously, but to get started, I thought, wow, I could do that. That's very similar to what I already kind of do. The hospitality side, not so much. It's, dealing with tenants, but just, shorter stay ones, so that's where it all kind of made sense to me. But then through that research of looking for properties and seeing where the numbers made sense in areas, I joined up with some snowbird investors down there and kind of figured out how to set up an LLC in the US. So that's where I took that little piece of information from them. And through all that research, I just stumbled across, I don't know if it was the phone listening to me talk about Airbnb or what it was, but somehow I started getting, I stumbled across Airbnb Arbitrage. I saw some people doing it. And, I actually saw a gentleman on Mark Loeffler's podcast talk about it. And then I just started digging into that and doing some research.
And then you ended up renting something? Like,
why don't you just quickly explain how it works?
Right.
Airbnb arbitrage is very simply, you're leasing a property from somebody, homeowner, and with their knowledge and consent, you are then subleasing it out on short-term rental platforms like Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. There's a ton of them. Expedia, you can go on and on, but those 3 I mentioned, VRBO, Booking.com, and Airbnb, are the main ones that the majority of people, almost all guaranteed, use. Airbnb being the biggest one. And then essentially you're trying to make a spread from the rent that you pay to, your profit, the nightly rate that you can rent it out for.
Okay. So now we have to sort of dig into the what made this place that you did end up first getting, what checked all the boxes in order for it to work, right? Because obviously if you're going to do this, it's like, I don't know how long the lease is, and I'm sure that there are ways to get out of it and that, but the idea isn't to do that. The idea is for it to carry itself, and you continuously do that through the whole year. So you've got to find something that's close to a draw. And what other things you have to consider?
Yeah, so you nailed it. I joined a mentorship again because I believe in coaching and teaching people that know more than me. And so I started to, but it's huge. You nailed it. Areas that are obviously popular for travel, vacation, growth, large population centers. And then my checklist probably should have been longer for the first place that I got into, but I tend to just try to get working and then I'll figure it out more as I go. That tends to be my style. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that tends to be how I do it. So basically, it was the first place. I wanted a decent place that I felt I would rent out as a family, where I would go to, and the key being someone that would let me do it. So I was just trying to find somebody that would let me do it. I ended up in Omaha, Nebraska. The first one was South Carolina, which probably would have been a better spot, but the um, property, I didn't like the house. The guy virtually walked me through it. It just needed too much work. And this business, I'm not into fixing properties. That's the homeowner's issue. I'm just there to make it look as good as I can. So as soon as it needed, looked like it needed some work, um, I didn't want to take it on. And also the numbers can be skewed. So this house was off of the waterfront, and the projections for the property were way higher than I felt they would be, because they were pulling in numbers from properties that were on the waterfront and closer to the lakes. And, you got to compare apples to apples. So them saying, oh, this house is going to rent for that because these ones do. Well, it's basic comparables. It didn't make sense to me. And this company that I signed up with basically kind of said, hey, we'll get you your first couple of deals. We'll find some owners that'll want to work with you. So I said no to the first one. It needed work. Place looked a little too dumpy for me. And then the next one was it was about a 6-year-old side split, basically in a subdivision. I thought, okay, this looks nice. My family would rent this. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, couple years old. Didn't need a lot of work to it. And it made some sense. I didn't know anything about Omaha, Nebraska, but I figured, learned a lot since. And I've made some money in it. I'm still running. I've got 2, and I got more leads than I can shake a stick at now coming at me in Omaha, because I think there's not a lot of people. It's not a very popular business model. There are people doing it in Omaha, but not quite as popular as places like Phoenix, Arizona, Florida. Texas is now really starting to blow up. So there's obviously much more popular vacation destinations to start this business in. The North Carolinas are huge, but I would just suggest, if I had any suggestion to any of your listeners, is do your research, do your market research. There's some money to be made in Omaha, but obviously you can find some better spreads in larger larger draws in certain areas and vacation spots for sure.
So what are the spreads? So like as an example, if you're willing to share, so you're saying that Omaha isn't great, but like what is this like the spread that you're getting in Omaha versus Mexico versus Texas, right? Are those the other
Yeah, so
locations?
Florida, Texas, yeah, Mexico, and then Omaha was where I've kind
Okay.
of started. Those are
Yeah.
the 4 spots I'm in now. Basically, the spreads are so I shoot for if the property nets about $1,000 a month. That's kind of my low point. If it's doing any less than that, then it's probably not a good deal. But I'm shooting for 1,500 to 2,000 on the high end would be nice. But if you look at ADR, which is your average daily rental, for example, in Omaha, the nightly rate is probably somewhere around, for a 3 to 4 bedroom, you're in the 150 to 170 would be on the high end. It can get as low as 120 a night. Whereas say Florida, for example, they don't do less than 225 a night. That's like minimum, right?
Wow.
And they'll get as high as 300-400 in high seasons. And that's a night. And then the name of the game is trying to get your occupancy rate up. If you can get north of say 75% occupancy rate, it's where you can really see some turnaround. Now, to flip that coin a little bit, though, Omaha rent is much lower.
Right.
So the rent for the average house in Omaha, you can probably do it for $1,700, $1,800 US for a 3 to 4 bedroom house. That's typical, just long-term lease. Whereas in Florida, it would be a little bit harder. Texas, why it's so popular right now is because the actual ADR is quite still high, probably over $200. And it gets lower if you go into a 1-bedroom studio. Obviously, I'm comparing houses, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom houses. But the rental rates in Texas are still very low. The purchase price in Texas is still very low, but it is very popular for a travel destination. Austin, Dallas, San Antonio. You got sporting events, conferences that people attend. Obviously, just the in-migration as well within the U.S. As we know, since COVID, a lot of people have fled to those states. So, and then when you can get that spread of the low rent but a high ADR, that's what I'm talking about. And the spread can really help you out in the long run.
So how many of these do you have running?
I have 8 of them now.
And you're pulling in 1,000 to 2,000 per month on each of them?
Yes. Yeah, on average
After
over the
everything.
year.
After
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. So the slow seasons, sometimes slow season, obviously their seasonality is very big in this industry. So for example, and they'll switch. So Mexico, for example, the high season is winter. You know, and then Omaha, it's the opposite, right? They have a baseball World Classic that they do in the summer. They've got one of the best zoos in the U.S., so a lot of people come to visit that, but more likely in the summer. So you know, in the winter, as long as I'm breaking even, or in the winter in Omaha specifically, as long as I'm, you know, ideally if I can make $500 a month, then that's a win to me, because you know you're going to be making 3-4K in the summer, and then it averages out to somewhere around 1,000 to 2,000 a month on each unit. That's my goal. What's been happening so far?
Wow. Well, so wow.
So
Yeah, so
how
you
do
can
you
see the
manage
attraction.
them, then? There's got to be a little, like, there's got to be some troubleshooting you've got to get around with the management.
Yeah, absolutely. That's obviously the biggest challenge. I'm doing it remotely. You know, you can go down in person, set them up, but you need your eyes and ears on the ground. So you have cleaners, handyman, you got a local team in the area that you rely heavily on, and then wouldn't be possible without the internet. The, you know, the software programs. I know Quentin, when I went to that meeting there where Cam Cassidy was talking about, he had touched on some of them as well. So that kind of got my wheels turning about apps like Turno, for example, which helps you find local cleaners. And they really are your eyes and ears. And the app operates all over the place. They'll give you estimates. Same with the handyman. TaskRabbit is one that I use to find a local handyman. They'll give you their hourly rate. They'll quote jobs. They'll have past reviews. So it really gives you some comfort. And then after that, you can move off the app and just develop a relationship with these people. And I found some fantastic team members that really do. You couldn't do it without them. That, coupled with your virtual assistants, I think are absolutely paramount if you want to scale. You can try to do a lot of this stuff yourself in the beginning, which I did. I think you should do that so you can learn your business. But then after a while, I think delegation is key. Otherwise, you'll be fielding messages and you know, inquiries and these kind of things
Well,
nonstop.
how much time are you spending each week working on this business?
Yeah, right now I'm probably spending anywhere from 8 to 10 hours. But in the beginning, it is obviously like any business, you're more heavily invested in the beginning. As you get them set up, once they're set up, it's much more automated. My VA handles a lot of the guest inquiries, the ordering of supplies, all of that stuff. But you know, in the beginning, I had to set all that stuff up myself, and it obviously took a lot more time to do the setups. But once you get it running, it can be quite seamless.
So you had to furnish them and everything, right? All of these
Some of them,
units?
yes. You can buy them fully furnished as well. There are operators that go out of business or switch for whatever reason, switch out of maybe out of a certain market, moving to a different market. And then there's companies that'll find these ones for you and have them fully furnished. But I did furnish the first two myself, right from here. Actually, I still never even went down. I had a team
Wait
member
a
from
minute.
Canada.
Yeah, you've never even been. How many of these have you been to?
I've been to three of them. Three of them. Yeah. In person myself. I've laid eyes
Three,
on them.
three of eight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I've done virtual tours and I have my team go and they'll walk me around, take videos and photos. And obviously it's not ideal. I would love to be there in person for all of them. And I think anybody who's getting started and has the time, you should go there and see them in person. I think there's a huge advantage to that, obviously. But yeah, I was just trying to scale quickly, and sometimes the leads are, and there's a ton of leads, you know, there's a ton of opportunity out there, right? So
Yeah, I mean, some people say like, why would you do this? But like I've got property in Tampa, and if you're going to pay me more and you're going to take better care of the property, and you know, like what happens with like repairs and stuff like that, like that's what I would think as an owner, like what are those benefits to me?
yeah, so the repairs typically, this is just my own personal way I've worked it out with them. It's anything under $200. I don't bother them with, and that's, you know, I've replaced towel rods, the shower curtains, obviously light bulbs, doorknobs, things like that, small things. We'll maybe even paint a place, paint a mural on a wall. That's what I'm trying to get into now, is theming my places a little bit more. By that I mean obviously making them, you know, cater to the area for whatever theme that may be, whether it's Dolly Parton in Tennessee, or you know, the Dallas Cowboys, say, in my Texas place. So I am playing around with those ideas. So I will do those things ourselves for sure. But any major issues, you know, appliance repairs and you know, bigger things obviously fall back on the owner for sure.
But you're covering those costs, like the owner's not covering it?
Which ones? The large ones or the smaller ones?
Yeah, no, the under $200.
Yeah, yeah, I cover those. Yeah.
Oh, I would love you as a tenant.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of the pitch, right? Is we try to come in and say, listen, that's the thing we're going to do. We're going to carry these nicks and knacks, things that we don't want to bug you with. And obviously your place is professionally cleaned multiple times a month, if not multiple times a week sometimes, which tenants aren't going to do. So there are actually a lot of advantages because at first that was my first question. Who the heck is going to let you come in and run a business out of their house, And then when I started looking at it and thinking of it from a landlord's perspective, I'm going, well, geez, this might be some of the best tenants I've ever had if I did all this stuff, and it made some sense. And I'll tell you what, the reason I have so many leads coming in from Omaha is for those exact reasons. The homeowner were kind of sketchy about it. And then when they see, oh, wow, yeah, they're getting their rent on time, property's being cared for. They popped in and checked on me because they weren't sure it was going how I said it was, and I mean, then so now they're telling friends, and word of mouth is spreading, and I'm getting calls from, like, I literally have 3 or 4 leads in Omaha right now that I'm trying to address.
Wow, really cool.
Like, as far as other people that want you to take over as the tenant.
Exactly, people that have multiple homes or their own house. There's literally people that are talking about moving out of their house, keeping it, and then because the advantages on that one too, which I wouldn't necessarily suggest people do, but you can try to pay a little over rent, ideally give them maybe a couple $100 more to entice them. Ideally, if you can just pay market rent, that's the sweet spot. That's what you want to be doing. But sometimes to get them a little extra motivated, you can. So I think that does, obviously dollars tends to motivate people. But yeah, I have people, the problem is it's not cheap to furnish a house, right?
Yeah.
You're still 20K by the end of the day, probably, to do a 3 to 4 bedroom house. If you're doing 1-bedroom condos, which a lot of people in this industry do, they stack up multiple condos because they're a lot more affordable to do. But at the end of the day, you got to be a little pickier. I've got to be a little pickier with all that. Can't just take everything coming at you, because it's not cheap to furnish a home, for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what are you looking for then in these Airbnbs? Like, is there, like, other than, like, all the different things that you can do in the area, like, are you also looking at 2 bedrooms versus like 1 bedrooms, or are there other things that you look for in the suite mix itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I need to diversify a little bit more. That's why Tampa, I have 2 condos, 2-bedroom condos that are being built. They should be ready in July, and those will be my 2 next units in Tampa. There's a lot of advantages to doing condos. You can start negotiating cheaper cleaning fees if you have multiple units in a building. So some people go in and have 10, 20 units in one building. So then when I have cleaners go in, they'll obviously give you better rates because they're already there banging out multiple units. You don't have outdoor maintenance. You don't have lawn care. You don't have snow shoveling if there's snow in your area. So there's a lot of advantages too. So I am trying to diversify and get some smaller units. The smaller units are a little steadier, but they don't have the big influx where if you have a house and you can host 10 people plus, you can really host not parties, but larger groups of people, families, barbecues for people that traveling. And then you can demand a little higher premium on those. So, you just don't want to necessarily go all houses because it's hard to scale and it's expensive to get them going. So you probably want to do a little bit of a mixer. That's what I've kind of learned from people that are doing it professionally.
It's pretty interesting stuff, Quentin.
Yeah, this is
getting intrigued. My wheels are spinning.
Yeah, this is an active business though, right? So
yeah,
you really, I mean, you're a business owner, you have to delegate, right? Like, otherwise you're gonna end up all over the place, and this could get, crazy. Managing 8 short-term rentals, and you're the business owner, you got to delegate, right? So what kind of tips would you have for people?
Yeah, so delegation is huge. And I learned it really from opening my cannabis shops, because obviously as a one-man show in real estate, I didn't learn to delegate very well. And then when I opened the cannabis shops, my plan to go into them was, look, I don't plan on working these stores. I already had a career. So I had the mentality that I had to learn how to systemize and delegate right from the jump, and hire staff and hire a team to help me out. So then that knowledge or that experience led to doing this. And you have to delegate in this business. And virtual assistants are a huge part of that. So people I know that have hundreds of units in this business, which is possible, They just have a team of virtual assistants that handle a lot of the day-to-day minutia. So the guest communication, like I said, literally you can set up an Amazon corporate account. They can have access to it. They communicate with the cleaners. The cleaners will tell us when things are low. For example, toilet paper, soaps, they need to be done. The virtual assistant then orders them or gets my okay to order them. And then they get sent directly to the cleaner or directly to the property. If there's any repairs, she'll communicate with the handyman as well. We have a chat group that we're all in to keep everybody in the know. And basically when she runs into a problem she doesn't have the answer for, she then comes to me and we take it from there. So that's what I'm working on now, is getting my systems in place, my SOPs, my standard operating procedures in place. And then ideally I need more VAs, because what happens is she only works so many hours in a day. So outside of her shift, she's great. She'll jump in and like answer some calls on the weekends and stuff, or some messages, but I'm still handling the stuff outside of her kind of work hours. And eventually I need like I need an evening guy to maybe handle the weekends and that kind of stuff. But for now, I'm still working on that.
Yeah, and a VA, especially wherever you get them from, I mean, they could be like a lot different pay than what you would get from somebody in Canada or North America, right? So are your VAs like in like the Philippines, or where are they?
Yeah, so most of the people in this industry tend to use people from the Middle East or the Philippines.
Huh.
And actually, part of that Snowbird investor group that I went down, the gentleman that running was Filipino, and his family was part of it, and he's a great guy. And basically, they put me on to the Philippines. So that's where, and what was interesting about them when I ran a job basically posting for this, the applicants I got some of them already had experience in this industry. They had already worked for companies that had done this. They had already done cold calling, trying to find you leads. They knew they were my girl that I hired was giving me tips. She was like, "Oh, well, we used to do
Wow.
this at this other kind." I was like, "Oh, that's great. Let's do that then." So, there was a lot of that going on, but yeah, absolutely. And the pay obviously is a way different than what you would be paying somebody here in Canada.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you're I know Rob's getting inspired here, and I can see the wheels turning in his head. But the like I'm just thinking like this probably is something that creates this new stream of income for you. And just like you talked about before, like, your cannabis shops, your rental properties, your realtor business, they all create these different streams of income that continue to pay you, right?
Yep.
Um, but did you think of it like that, like stacking income so that if one stopped, or let's say Airbnb rules change in a particular state, you have to have the flexibility to still have your income coming in, not have everything in one place. Were you thinking about that when you put this
Yeah,
together?
that is actually one of my largest motivations. COVID really, like it kind of shocked me what had happened, and how they reacted, the government did, and what they did to businesses and small businesses. And I got, for lack of a better word, probably a little scared, and was like, holy smokes, what if something changed and they shut down my biz? So then I was like, man, you need more than one thing going, right? Because if they shut one down, great, you got a couple others on the go. And then to be honest with you, I've obviously had the lifelong dream of operating remotely and being able to travel around my family, spend time with them. Whereas real estate really keeps you local, obviously, for obvious reasons. So it was, once I started to see the potential in this, and my wheels were turning, maybe like Rob's were here, and I was going, wow, and I'm doing some basic math on it, and I'm thinking, okay, so the real goal for me is to eventually supplement my realtor income and switch that out, because it's a lot right now. I got three small kids and these multiple businesses on the go. So that is my idea, is to, and then also to get out of the country, as far as not get out of the country, but to have income coming from a different country than just our own. So that is my long-term goal, to get there. And but that was definitely my idea, was to, hence why I did Mexico and the US and multiple states. As much as I wouldn't suggest people are all over the map like that, that is exactly why I did that. So if they shut me down in one state, I'm there. If they shut it all down across the US, I got some going in Mexico. I was trying to make it as hard as possible to snuff me out if you wanted to. So I don't know if I've succeeded or not, but time will tell.
That's cool. It's you're building in resilience into your plan, right? So I think that's important for anybody because governments, change tax law and they change rules and and as a business owner, you have to develop that resilience to be able to, get through all of those stages where you get inspired by something, you hear about it and you figure it's hard and it gets harder, but then you got to get resilient and past that. And then you can get into that last stage where you're like, oh, this is awesome. I've really accomplished this. And then you inspire the people who are getting started, right? So that's so awesome that you've been able to really create that additional stream of income.
Yeah, for me, I just want to try to. It was what was in my control. So what I always ask myself is, look, I can't control what the government's doing. It just, there's nothing I can do about that. So what I can do is what I try to focus on what I can control. And if it's starting another business somewhere else, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I can to try to take care of my family as best as possible.
Which of the places have you visited?
Tampa, Florida. I'm going down to Mexico on May 5th, so I'll have visited that one. But Florida, I was down there. I met an operator, toured units, toured the brand new building I'm coming into. So then that one gave me a lot of comfort, and that's why I would suggest anybody go down and check it out. The ones in Omaha when I first started, I actually had my property, believe it or not, I had a property manager of mine from Canada drive down there on my behalf because she was willing to. I didn't ask her to. She was just like, "Hey, I'll get in on that and help you out." And I was like, "Amazing." She wanted a road trip out of it. Her husband was a handyman, so they went down, and so then I had a lot of comfort in that sense because I really trusted her, and she was down there giving me, photos and video tours, and so then that gave me some real comfort on the first one to be able to even take that kind of leap. And then the second house that I got there was just down the street, so I knew the area, I knew the market, I knew what I could do as far as rental because the other one was already up and running. So that's why I had some comfort doing those ones blind. And then Texas, I went and toured a bunch of units in Austin that weren't mine. Another gentleman I met, and then my unit is actually in Dallas, so I had an idea of the Texas area, but that one was a little more turnkey. That one came furnished. I knew Dallas was big. I know there's some large operators in Dallas doing hundreds of units, so I know the numbers make sense there. And then after seeing Austin in person, I thought, man, I gotta get down here. So that was kind of what led me there. But Florida's the one I did in person and felt obviously real comfortable and toured all types of projects and had a real good look at.
Yeah, it's
Is
always
it,
nice to go somewhere where you're going to enjoy your time outside of the working as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
uh,
that is a big draw to this business. It's kind of a 2-in-1, right? You're going down
Yeah.
there on vacations, you're working write-offs, and it's and at the same time you're trying to have some fun too. So
what area is your most successful one?
at the moment, well, so because it's so new, to be honest, my Omaha ones are now, and so this is something to give your listeners if they are starting this business seasonality. So you should always be chasing the seasonality. So what I mean by that is, and where I learned was I started my Airbnbs, not all of them. The Dallas one, I timed it right. The other ones I started at the slow season, right? So it's all about recouping your investment, right? So if you're 20K into furniture, you want to get that 20 grand back as fast as possible. Well, how would you do that? You would start it going into high season, right?
Ah,
You get your place set up and whatever, learn your high season, and then get in right before then because I'll get your money back faster. So my Omaha ones are now doing the best because I'm hitting high season, right? We're just getting into baseball season. People are doing June bookings. I got a booking the other day for 4 nights for $1,800 for 4 nights. So
wow.
yeah, so you can really see now I'm going, okay, this makes some sense. And I'm glad I stuck it out and didn't just fold up tent in Omaha and take off. And the Florida and Mexico ones, Mexico's only been running for 2 months, but I'm in the slow season. Tampa, I'm connected with a guy down there that's doing a bit of a different strategy. So that one is doing well, but it's still slow season in Florida. But he's connected with, he's operating more as he's got a hotel registration. He's got his business registered as a hotel business. So he caters to actually a lot of locals. So it's not quite your Airbnb traveling typical guest that you would be, vacationing. It's actually quite a lot of locals doing weekly rentals. You can find some midterm local workers looking for like a month here and there. So that one's doing well as well. But the Omaha one, I'm really starting to see some of those attractive numbers that kind of go, okay, this makes some sense.
And how, like, you've got to pay a lot of attention to what your rent's going to be in high and low season, how to set it properly so that it's attractive, but still you get the most out of it. How do you do that?
Yeah, there's an app called Price Labs, and it's a software. It's paramount. I think you got to have it. It's basically hotels use the same type of stuff. You still need to monitor it. You still need to set it up, keep an eye on it. But what it does is it uses local software and local numbers from hotels, other Airbnbs, and it sets your rates for you. So, for example, the eclipse that just happened. I personally am not a guy into astronomy, and that wasn't a big thing for me, but it was a big thing for a lot of people. And I wouldn't have thought it was something that needed to have the rates raised, but it was, and the system knew it. It jacked the rates up for that weekend. Another what was Taylor Swift concert was coming into town in Texas, and one of my buddies, same thing. He wouldn't have been paying attention to it. And what'll happen, you'll find, and this happened to me in Omaha as well. When I first listed my listing, I didn't know this, so I didn't have my rates set up. So people came in October of 2023 and booked June dates in 2024. Right? They were
Wow.
booking dates almost a year ahead of me, and I'm going, "Oh, that's great! I'm killing it, right? I'm getting bookings already." Well, no, what it was is they were like, "Why does this guy have his rate set at 120 bucks a night, and everybody else is 400?" So they're
Oh,
like, "I'm snatching that week up," and then so in hindsight, I was like, "Oh, geez, I left a lot of money on the table there, right?" But it's just because I didn't know. So there's ways to get around that. You block your calendars out in the future. You set everything to like $1,000 until you figure it out, and no one's gonna book it. And then once you
Or
get
maybe
yourself
they
settled, you
do. Then you're
yeah,
okay with that
yeah,
too.
great, exactly. Come on in, but
yeah.
no. So these are just things I learned along the way. But
Huh.
yeah,
You must
Price
have
Labs is paramount.
you must have some interesting stories. Like, had you had something like weird or like
The
different
cleaners
happen?
go in and then they call you and go, "You're not going to believe this."
I've heard some from fellow operators. I've been pretty lucky so far. I try to really vet people as best I can, but I've had some parties. So I got a call from the sheriff department in Omaha. I've already had some friendly conversations with them. We had some underage drinkers, and they had arrested 6 people from the house and called me, and so I'm thinking, oh, geez, at least I hadn't done anything wrong. I didn't think so. I called them back, and no, I was, I had done everything I was supposed to doing. The guy who had booked it on Airbnb looked like he was 55 years old. He had been vetted through them, ID verified. So I passed that on to the police, and to be honest, for them to even get more information, they have to get a subpoena to get Airbnb to release the information. But you try to steer clear of that stuff. But that's probably the craziest story I had was underage drinkers, and they had to come in and make some arrests, and but it all was pretty uneventful. Other than that, just some kids obviously got themselves into some trouble.
They were back the next night and slept the whole day.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's it. And that is what, so that was, they weren't back the next night. We changed the locks on them, immediately had them,
Oh,
kicked out
really?
of the property. They breached the agreement we had. We went after them for damages in the property, things that were broken, smoking in the house, and Airbnb has coverage, air cover. So you can put claims in, and we did, and we won. And we ended up making more money off of it. Actually, I don't know if that's bad to say or not, but because I mean, we got a new microwave out of the deal. It ended up working out. Not what I suggest people try and do, but we turned a bad situation into one that kind of
You
benefited
need
us
me
in
to
the long
stay
run.
at one of your other places so you can make more money?
Yeah, there
I
we
can
go.
cause
Yeah,
some
just burn this.
trouble.
Yeah,
What?
exactly. Burn a couch and we'll be good.
But what's interesting here is, I was going to ask the question, where do you see your business kind of going in the future? But I'm thinking that maybe Costa Rica might be a nice expansion to your empire there.
What actually
Because,
is, yeah, go ahead, Quinn. Sorry, cut you off.
well, no, like I think, Rob may be able to help a little bit with some direction. I
We
don't,
might be able to trade off info for info.
I'm.
Absolutely, 100%. It's one of these things that I will say, once it took me a while to get my mind to even thinking I could run a business in the US, right?
Right.
I had trouble from a younger man, had trouble crossing the border sometimes getting into the US, and just being able to have the mentality to think I could run a business, I could earn income down there, has now got you open to like, well, why couldn't I do this almost anywhere? you know, and I'm hooked up a property management company in Mexico specifically, who he kind of focuses on the Caribbean, and he just got back to me with a deal in Turks and Caicos, and you know, he's got. I've heard people doing this in Dubai. I've heard people doing this in Europe. And if you have the team, the local team, you just have to make sure you're, you know, playing by the laws, paying your local taxes that you need to be doing, so they don't shut you down or get you in trouble. But I mean, it's possible. It was just for me, it was like, it was an eye-opening moment that I was like, wow, it's, you know, thinking, you know, I'm investing in Durham region to like, I can almost invest almost anywhere in the world with the right team and the right people in place. So it really was an eye opener for me that you could do this anywhere, and definitely would love to be connecting with Rob after this one.
Are you going to scale? Like, what's the future look like?
Yeah, absolutely. The plan is to get to 50 units. That's kind of the goal I've set for myself. There's people that make that number look small that I've met and kind of run into. So that is my goal, to transition out of my realtor business into this one. Have my cannabis stores going, and then my Airbnb arbitrage business. That is kind of the plan, to scale that, and then be able to hire more VAs, and then reduce my hourly input to it.
So theoretically, that's 50 grand a month.
That's yes. Yep, absolutely. Net. The gentleman that I know had 36 units. I went down and said, Austin, Texas. He was net 60K last month, and he's just going into high season.
Amazing.
So it's very doable. He was also a Canadian, so it's you know, that was kind of, so it's pretty amazing actually, what you can do with this business. What I've seen some people do.
So if people want to buy your course and systems, how can they reach you?
Yeah, that is actually something I've been working on.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea.
Yeah. So I've got my email. You can reach me in a million different ways. I got emailed. I'm on Instagram. I started up an Instagram page. I'm not very good at this social media thing. I don't have a podcast or anything, but obviously you can DM me there. You can call me on my cell phone. I'm still answering that. So
what's the URL? Like, what's the name?
The one I've got is, I want to be correct when I say it, so sorry, bear with me. It is Airbnb to Freedom. 2 is TO. Airbnb to Freedom.
Okay.
That is the Instagram page I started.
Oh, that's the Instagram page. Okay. Airbnb to Freedom.
Great. Awesome. And then any other ways that people can contact you?
Yeah, email. I started up email address for this one. So it's Tark Homes. That's my business. I started in the US, TARK, homes plural @gmail.com. That's my email. Anybody can obviously reach out to me anytime. And I also got a US, I got a phone number, open phone number that I use for US calling and stuff as well. And people can always DM me and call me on that as well too. I have no issue talking to anybody.
We'll get all that info. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, of course.
And also for your stores, send us all the information, all the links, and we'll make sure that they're all in the show notes for you.
Yeah, if anybody's in Durham region, love you to come check us out. Bowmanville specifically, that's our main store. Rustic Cannabis, and then Fenland Falls. If you're heading up north and you know, going through the lock system, Trent Severn, any of that stuff, stop in and check us out. We'd love to have you.
Awesome. Thanks very much. And how do people get a hold of you, Rob?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you very much for sharing all this. It's really exciting. You know, it's exciting information. I think if people, because it really does, like, there's still risk there, right? But this is fairly easy to start up. It's fairly cost, effective, or it doesn't really cost that much to get started on it. And if you do it right, and I would say, like, don't go crazy, try to figure it out first, like you said. If you do it carefully, it sounds like it can pay off quite well.
Yeah, it really can. And you nailed those things that were attractive to me, right? You don't need financing to do this. You don't need a lot of capital to get started on your first unit. If you're doing it right, pay attention to your competition, pay attention to your location, do it right, and these can be very, very lucrative. I'm actually even entertaining some ideas, because my capital only goes so far, and whether or not I want to start partnering with people or not is one thing, but also you can partner with the homeowners. You can approach homeowners and say, hey, listen, you want to leave your furniture here, I need you to add these things to it. Me and you are going to split the profits, anything above your mortgage, taxes, and utilities, and we're going to split it. So your investment can actually be almost zero if you can. There is a lot of different ways to to do this business, and it really is. Once you can shift your mindset and kind of get behind it, it can be a real powerful strategy.
Well, almost always, when you buy a house here, I know that's different, but almost always it's furnished here in Costa Rica. So that'll be, and I'm going to look into this because I think there's something there. I have one Airbnb right now and we manage it. Like, we don't have a property management company, so we manage it. It's close enough that I don't think there's been a time where I haven't checked on it myself personally in between. But I think that we're getting comfortable enough now with how everything runs that I'm not going to have to go there in between every time. And it's really not as difficult as I thought it was going to be. So this is something that's really attractive to me.
Yeah, I think that's common too. I had the same idea, thinking, oh wow, it's this really elaborate thing. And other than getting it set up, getting it looking right, and getting your teams in place. Once I have my teams in place, my cleaners send me photographs every single time of all the cleans, everything that's done. They let me know anything that's wrong with the place, and you jump on it and get it fixed right away, and then you keep it moving, build up your reviews, and it's something that if you've got a little bit of persistence and got that mind for it, it's totally doable for anybody out there.
Awesome.
Thanks for sharing.
Been great. Yeah, this has been good.
Great. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Right. We'll have to connect after. Appreciate it, guys.
Quentin, you were asking how people can reach me?
Yes.
Rob at mrbreakthrough.ca. That's the best way to do it. And Quentin, how can people reach you?
You go to quintindesouza.com or visit durhamrei.com, or I am on Instagram at qmanrei, and that's a good place to DM me if you want.
You know what might be smart is if we put our own contact information in the show notes as well.
Yeah, we'll have to do that.
And I'm going to start adding that. Anyway.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Drew. This was amazing. And I think you inspired Rob. So I was happy. I was really happy with that.
No, I'm the first level though, right here. There's another there's another door that needs to open over in that room.
Well, listen, get her to listen to the podcast, right?
Yeah, or someone else's.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the only way.
That's right.
Have a good one.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.
Is that a joke, Quentin?
Is that supposed to be a cricket?
That was crickets.
Okay. That's like my dad jokes. Whenever I say dad jokes to my kids, that's crickets. Like,
here's one for you. I just told it to my kids last night. There's a thief around here stealing wheels off all the cars. The police are working tirelessly to find them.
Nice.
Yes, I can see how that would be one of that's a joke that I would probably steal, unfortunately.